Well, Denise Faustman, it's so great to catch up with you again.
Oh, you too. You too.
Here we are at the American Diabetes Association Scientific Sessions in the press room. Denise, I was wondering if you could give like a quick summary of your research that was so record-breaking 2 years ago, and then up to the published research a couple months ago that proved half of what your work was. It was encouraging.
Well, I think they proved two-thirds. So
start in the beginning.
Okay. So we published a paper in 2001 and 2003 showing for the first time that end-stage diabetic mice, end-stage, and these are mice that really get autoimmune diabetes, end-stage diabetic mice could be cured. And we furthermore showed in 2003 that the way that they were cured was by regeneration of the islet cells. And furthermore, we showed that there was at least two ways that those could regrow or regenerate. One way is that by endogenous or self-regeneration, without any cell transplant, they could regenerate. And we also showed there was another way that we could speed the process up, and that was by adding a new stem cell from the spleen, from a normal animal, into those diabetic. Now, if you're diabetic, you could care less. You say, just regrow my islets, get rid of my disease. So we were extraordinarily pleased about 3-4 months ago when 3 groups, now 4 years later, have confirmed that this two-limb cure for diabetes works in NOD mice. It cures them. 2, they're similarly regenerating their islets. And 3, the only difference in the data is they think that the regeneration is only driven by your own body regenerating, and that the introduction of a stem cell is not necessary. So now the 2 papers here at the ADA meeting reconfirm that you can get regeneration both from self sources as well as from a stem cell transplant.
So
but our goal is, as we head to the clinic, Scott, is to not have to use any cell. Mm-hmm. And we hope that every diabetic out there, even 20 years afterwards, has enough regenerative capacity that you don't need a cell transplant. But until we get into humans, we won't know what parts of the therapy a given individual needs.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing, it's really, we've been focusing on the islet cell. It's really the immune system that destroys the islet cell.
Absolutely. So I sometimes make the comment that it probably doesn't matter who has the bigger vat of islets right now, or the better islets. If we don't get rid of the autoimmune process, those cells are going to be reattacked. Whether those cells are your own cells trying to regenerate, or they're the newest and latest stem cell that's harvested from your favorite source.
Like clean pigs or
even human islets are susceptible to recurrent autoimmunity. Some people think the islets can regenerate from bone marrow. Some people think the islets can regenerate from the spleen, like us and a couple other groups. Some people believe islets regenerate from duct cells. So there's going to be many ways, I think, an islet regenerates, but it's going to be pretty futile in type 1 diabetes unless we get rid of the autoimmunity.
Let me ask you, because I know they have done studies where they gave cyclosporin to newly onset, and it didn't arrest the destruction of the islet cells, did it?
That's right. So heavy doses of immunosuppression were, in retrospect, they helped to prove that this was an immune disease. So they could freeze the immune state.
Why didn't the islets regrow and start?
Yeah, well, if you give an anti-proliferative drug and you want the cells to proliferate, you're probably not going to see the proliferation in the beta cell. You're not going to see the proliferation in the bad T cells, but you're not going to see the proliferation in the beta cell.
So what you give is the TPN?
TNF.
That's not an anti-proliferative?
Well, no, it's actually, so this therapy is very different than this possible therapy, at least therapy for mouse and possible therapy for humans, is very different than how people thought we could treat this disease. The major concept that was out there for years and years is that once you get diabetes, it's too late. That the T cells that cause this disease, the bad white blood cells that cause this disease, are so diverse that a unique characteristic of that cell, to give it a characteristic so you can eliminate it, remove it, reroute it, is not going to be possible. Because for those of us who work in the disease and many educated patients, they know that their child had this process going on in their pancreas for years before they ever presented the clinic. So the main thought was the only way to make it impact once you get the disease is to use immunosuppression and treat all the T cells. So what we think distinguishes this attempt to do something new is that we're trying to actually kill and only kill the bad cells. So we think we found unique identifiers that allow us to find these bad guys and distinguish them from good guys. And the story gets a little better because the distinguishing traits allow us to kill it. So it's kind of like an antibiotic. You take an antibiotic, and most people have taken antibiotics, and you don't die from that antibiotic because it knows to only kill the bacteria, not your good cells. So we think we have similar specificity to where we're going beyond the mouse.
If the T cells are like models of automobiles,
yes.
You just want to take out the Chevy Cavalier.
That's right. You don't want
to
stop the entire freeway from running down the thing. You just want to pluck out the given one. And that's been the dream. And we've got the dream pretty well nailed down in the mouse. And so now the question is the dream for the humans.
When does that start? Human trials.
I think the question's probably more directly answered by what are we doing today in the lab?
I think I talked to you last year, and you were trying to get the equipment so you could screen lots and lots of people, and that was a challenge.
Yes, and so what we're doing is something that anybody with diabetes will understand. If somebody in 1920 said, I've discovered insulin, you'd go, great, what's insulin? And they'd say, well, it worked in a mouse, it worked in a dog, now we're going to take it to a human. And if they didn't know that insulin changed blood sugars, and they didn't know how to monitor a blood sugar, what would be the chance that insulin would be a good drug in humans? It would be zero, because you wouldn't know how to give it, how many times to give it, when to give it, because you'd have no blood sugar.
Right.
So we're trying to do the same thing. We're trying to create a blood sugar test for the bad white blood cell in the blood of humans. So if you can't identify that bad T cell, count it and quantify it from tubular human blood, we're not talking about a mouse blood, human blood, and do it every single day reproducibly,
then you won't know if your therapy's working.
Yeah. So, if you had lots and lots of money, billions of dollars, you could do 50 different doses, different timings, and hope that one of them would show.
Why can't you just use the C-peptide to see if the islets are making more insulin?
Sure. Now that we will definitely do. But that's a long-term biological. No, it's a great marker. It's a final symbol. But you have to wait a while for that C-peptide.
For the islets to grow.
Yeah, for the islets to grow.
The attack.
Yeah. So, and what would happen is, if you were lucky, you might see C-peptide in somebody, but you may be giving 50 times too much drug, and you could actually back off in dose. You want to remove these T cells completely and then sit back and let the regeneration
go. So where
go.
are you with this diagnostic test?
Yeah. So as most people know, we have diabetics coming into the lab, one diabetic and one control. We're always looking for more controls. Diabetics are always highly motivated. Between 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock in the mornings, about 3 days a week, sometimes 4. And we're drawing that blood and working on creating a blood sugar test on T cells. When we get that nailed down, that's when David Nathan over in the clinic will start the interventional part. But that's the most important signal we need to get.
So if you can't do it in one person, why get more samples? How's that going to help find it?
Oh, because we keep changing things on how we process the blood sample. So It's kind of like somebody saying, I got a glucometer, and you go, oh, great, and you're a diabetic, and you come in, and they've got a glucometer, and it's the size of your bedroom. And you go, that's great. And you go, okay, this is good. We can finally check blood sugars. And so they take a tube of blood, and they check your blood sugar, and you go, okay, what's my blood sugar? And they say, well, the glucometer's not quite perfected. It's going to take us 12 hours to get the read out the other end. You go, well, this is progress. This is good. We got a machine, but we got to make it a little smoother. So we're working on all those steps to make it smoother.
So if you take my blood, how will you know, if you're looking for those bad T cells, how will you know that you got it if there's no reference?
Oh, well, we always have a control. We draw a control simultaneously. And when we add TNF, which is the cytokine or the antibiotic that kills the bad cells, your blood has the cells, and we see a death of a subpopulation of your T cells. We take a control tube of blood, we add TNF, And those cells go, what are you talking about? This is just fine. We don't see any death
So
signal.
you can find the death. You have an instrument that will...
Yes, and in fact, part of the research is to figure out which instrument reads those T cells most accurately, which glucometer works better.
So where are you? Which glucometer works better?
Well, it's a little bit hard to show and tell on a webcast camera, but we're testing, doing different comparisons to figure out. When you do tests, it's sensitivity and specificity, and those are scientific terms. But you could have a good blood test for blood sugars, but it only read high or low. But it hit it every time, highly accurate. Or you could develop a blood test that gave you a reading of 200, 300, but 1 in 10 times it would miss it. So as you head to the clinic, you want both of those parameters nailed down. So we're working on those.
You're going to start human trials when you've got this test dialed in.
Right.
And when any sense of how close you are?
I don't like
50%?
giving timelines. It's getting better and better. Okay, so
you're confident that you'll have
we're
this
totally
test in
confident
hand.
that humans have these defects, and we're totally confident that we can develop a diagnostic test to be used in a phase 1 clinical trial to give us this kind of information. Yeah.
So due to Lee Iacocca, I heard you have money now to start the human trials when you're ready?
Yes, this work has been supported by the Iacocca Foundation, and we had the initial instrument to start working with a year and a half ago, and we're working in that format to bring it forward to humans. So it's a lot of work, and it's very cutting-edge, new work, but we think we can do it.
Okay. So people watching, if they want to get involved, do you need to sign up people to give blood?
Sure. We have 2 different people. Many people call us and just say that they want to be on a list. So if we need people that are 5 years with diabetes or 1 year or 20 years, can they have their name on a list? So that's number one.
Can you give that phone number?
Sure. It's 617-726-4084.
Okay.
And they can get their name on that list. Second thing is, we have people from all over the world come in at 7 a.m. in the morning. Either parking, Boston's pretty hard to get around, and so you can get in and donate a tube of blood. And we are usually backed up about 2 to 3 months for that tube of blood.
So you have plenty for the next 3 months.
We have plenty, but we open it up to everyone, and we're always happy to have people. We have people who are sheep farmers from Manitoba, Canada, to people from Australia, to England, to people who live in Boston, to New Yorkers who come in for a romantic weekend, and then Monday stop by the Faustman lab to give blood. So everybody comes. We've had a kid skateboard from Utah. To the horror of his parents. So everybody comes in different routes.
I'd love a film clip of that.
Yeah, so of course his cell phone was ringing the morning he arrived in the clinic because his mom wanted to know, are you there? Are you there? So everybody has their own way of getting there, and we're grateful because if it wasn't for these people volunteering, we'd work in the mouse because it's much easier, simpler, cheaper. But it's really the support of the lay people that have allowed us access to blood samples with such ease and reliability. Almost nobody misses their appointment. Okay, I mean, this is unbelievable.
That's great.
Because people want to participate in this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we thank the lay public and people with diabetes for helping us out to push this one area of research forward.
So to summarize, the recent research supports your work,
yes,
that the cure is possible, that you're on the right track. You're dialing in this instrument that will test how many of those T cells that are killing the islets are in the individual.
That's right.
And once you've perfected that, which you think is in the next
year to 2 years, yeah.
Okay.
We're in that time frame, yes.
Then you will open up the human trials, give it to the people in your trial,
yes,
and see if their islets start to regrow.
That's right. That's right.
Wow.
And trials and everybody should always be aware, trials take a while. We have to go through all these phases that are dictated by the government, but hopefully we'll get into humans within a reasonable time frame with a really good test, a really good test to know what we're doing or what we're not doing within short time.
2 years probably.
2 years probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I, as a type 1, very excited. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down to talk to us.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
All right, Denise.
See you, get the update.